Talking with Jerry.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Got to get these subscribers up, and the only way that you're going to know about any content that I post and upload is to please subscribe. So I'm back on the rant tonight about Bill Maher. Yes, this is episode 3 about Bill Maher. I'm combining his show that he did tonight along with the show he did last week with some things that I think are really borderline dangerous. So I want to go into some clips from his show and then comment about him. And I'm sure you're going to agree with me when you see the direction that Bill Maher is going. I, of course, have talked about him in the past, his comments on slavery, making light of it, saying that, oh, it was something that just happened in the past. Other societies had various forms of slavery, etc., etc., etc. But I don't know why he's on this kick. But I'm going to go through what he talked about on this show last week and this week, everything from wokeism, reparations, and diversity, which he calls himself a progressive or liberal, whatever he calls himself. He really should just be a host on Fox News. So let's get started. As I was saying, some of the words that he said I think are very dangerous and pointing in a dangerous direction. And we're going to start off with his show this week where he literally laughed at the idea of reparations for ADOS, or Black people, American descendants of slaves in this country. And I'm going to let you hear how he opened his show this week, which was disgusting.
Did you see that what the San Francisco supervisors have done? They are now backing reparations. If you're a black person in San Francisco, of $5 million. Really? No reaction? Okay. All right, let me keep going. You get $5 million, elimination of personal debt of all tax burdens, a guaranteed annual income of $97,000 for 250 years. Wow, must be some health care involved there, too. And a home that you get for $1. And the, let's see who's clapping there. The first to comment on this was George Santos, who said...
So Bill Maher, in my opinion, just made fun of every ADOS, American descendant of slave, every black person who's descendant of slaves in America. And even if you're from the Caribbean and you're in America now, he just really made fun of your ancestors. Now, the San Francisco bill, which is being proposed by the city council, is not going to go anywhere. But it's just the idea. And for him to start his show this week, all I can say is, Bill, when Jewish people got reparations, which they rightly deserved after World War II from the German government, and all the things that the German government put in place, you can't have a swastika, that's a crime. You can't even do a Nazi salute, yet alone all the things that black people have to deal with in this country, Confederate flags, etc. You've never done a show laughing about that, about Jewish people getting reparations from Germany. And as I pointed out before, Obama gave Holocaust survivors, Jewish people, reparations here in America with American tax dollars. Japanese people, and rightfully so, got reparations for their internment in relocation camps during World War II. Though it was only for a couple of years, about 4 years or so, that they were interned, they got reparations. Bill, you haven't started out any comedy routines about that. And to start off your show tonight thinking that that's funny, what is funny to me is your audience didn't laugh at you. That's what's funny, Bill. Yes, you could not believe that the audience didn't think that what you were saying was funny. And to me, that says a lot. So those, you just saw the clip and you noticed at the end, he was almost upset that the audience wasn't getting his stupid joke. So as I mentioned, this proposal is moving forward through the City Council of San Francisco. It's not going to go anywhere. But the main point is that reparations need to come from the federal government. The federal government owes ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves, not the city of San Francisco. So on behalf of the ancestors, this was not a joke. And I'm going to come back to this later. So the next thing I want to mention is that in that show, he also critiqued the University of Michigan for having 142 diversity, equity, and inclusion staff at their university and was making light of that, more or less like a joke about it. Well, Bill, the reason that the University of University of Michigan has 142 diversity, equity, and inclusion staff members is because they have an enrollment of over 33,000 students. Over 33,000. And they want to make sure, especially in a state like Michigan that has a large black population, and everywhere from Detroit to Dearborn to Lansing to Flint, that black students, that Hispanic students, that students of Indian descent, Arab descent, get an equal opportunity to attend a university that their parents pay tuition, state taxes that go to subsidize the tuition of that university. So that's not a joke, Bill. And I know people are jumping on this whole diversity thing, attacking it, but that was just something else that he went into that was just really off of the rails. So now I want to get into what he covered in his show last week, where he had a guest, John McWhorter, who I'm going to talk about. But first, I want you to hear something of how he opened his show last week talking about this particular issue. And it's real short, so let's go to it.
Today, Disneyland, I'm not making this up, Disneyland now is dropping Zippity Doo Dah. It was a song, I guess, they used in that parade. No, has racist origins. Okay, Zippity Doo Dah is offensive, but the Seven Dwarfs can still...
So now you just heard Bill Maher make light of the fact that a racist song, Zippity Doo Dah, Zippity Day, though it was used by Disney many years ago in a movie, it's almost him saying, oh, I'm upset. Why do they have to get rid of this song? Well, Bill, this is a song made about a movie where black men were depicted as happy slaves. Black men were participating in this happy movie about the antebellum South, like everything is great on these plantations and what was going on at that time period in history. And they're singing, they're so happy, singing a song that really made fun of them. And Bill, of course, that the fact that these slaves were singing this song and appearing to be happy, I guess you like that. Well, I'm glad that Disney decided to become woke and get rid of that song. And, it's a ride that Disney had, that they played this song. I've been on the ride myself with my kids many years ago, and my nephews when they were little. And they're going to change this ride to still have like the logs that go through the water as a water ride, and change it into a black princess, and do something that's more apropos. So you may be upset, Bill, but I think most of America is happy that this song, this really critical, I would say evil song, is going away. So now let's go to who else was on his show last week. I'm going to tell you about John McWhorter. He is I'd say he's a black conservative, not to the extreme, but I would critique him that way. He is a columnist for the New York Times. He's a professor at Columbia University. And he wrote a book, Nasty Words and Woke Racism. I guess he may contribute racism to being woke. And I wouldn't buy his book to read the book to come to see what his conclusion is. But let's listen to some dangerous comments that Bill was making. I feel these are dangerous, with a discussion with John McWhorter, and where these comments went and then I'm going to come back afterwards with some commentary.
People's questions, the difference between equity and equality, because we have heard that. I mean, I never heard equity, that word, a lot before a few years ago, and now I think it sounds like equality, but it seems to be a very different thing, and it's in a lot of federal legislation now, equity. So I said, what's the difference? And God bless him, said on it, I'm not sure I know. And Bernie, you're not alone. I can't find anybody who actually knows, or people, they have a different view of it, so I just thought I'd ask you two bright guys, what is the difference between equity and equality in your view?
Oh, the difference is a truly sneaky, terrible thing. Equity. Okay. Equity is this wormy word. The idea is that you're going to have equality by forcing the issue, by bringing people into positions that they're not qualified for yet, so that everything looks, quote unquote, like America. So it sounds like equality, and you say equity, and you figure it's the same thing. But it's a euphemism. They're trying to slip in without letting you know that it's going to be equality accomplished in a way that you probably wouldn't like. It's like if you say to somebody, well, before I let you go, and you say that to them, they didn't say anything wrong with it, but really you just want to get them. Or if you talk about diversity, well, imagine talking to Franklin D. Roosevelt about diversity. When we say diversity, what we mean is changing standards for various reasons for Black and Latino and sometimes Native American people. That's what diversity means. You just don't want to say it. Equity means that you force equality, and you kind of weasel your way through it. And so it's like you take the word equality and you kind of knock the AL out of it. It's like bam, bam. It's like bam, bam. And you knock it out and you've got equity. And the people who do this think that that's the right thing because they are on the side of the angels and
Right.
have to have this fake equality. And what it means is this DEI. It's not an accident that DEI is the first three letters of deity. These people think of themselves as gods. None of this is an accident. So that's what equity means, whether Bernie Sanders knows it or not. It's a weasel word.
In terms of numbers, though, right? Can to answer me this, is this equity? Because this is something that is very close to us here. We tape at CBS. I know it's confusing. We're on HBO. Don't ask. It just happens to be that. CBS writers' rooms for CBS shows must be staffed with a minimum of 50% BIPOC. That's
a disease. Sounds like it. Sorry.
No, it stands for bisexual. Bisexual Indian people of color. Yeah, no.
Close enough.
It's what is bi?
No, it's
Black,
not bisexual. Black,
indigenous people,
persons of color.
So 50% of every writer's room, which is, that to me sounds like that's more equity than equality. They're saying like, well, these aren't the best people perhaps to write the show. What if it's a show about a polka band in a ski town?
But their color is what makes it.
Right. We're just saying it has to, every writer's room. That would be equity, right? As opposed to equality.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to offer a slight.
As always, it's where do you draw the line? So you have to do something different. But if you force it to that extent that you say that next week everything has to be equal, what it comes down to is this. What that does to, for example, Black people, is that you go through an entire life knowing that nothing that you've been asked to do, nothing that you've been granted, can be completely separated from the fact that somebody wasn't thinking about the fact that you were a pretty color and it would make them look good to bring you in. You spend your whole life that way? Yes, that does include me. That is something that we have to think about with these sorts of policies where you force it really quickly and you drag people in to be what used to be called, what happened to the term token Black? Remember we used to say that?
Yeah.
Now it's called diversity and equity. It won't do. So yes, but you can't do it too much too fast or you're dehumanizing everybody but white people.
Okay, so first let me deal with John McWhorter. I mean, he just outright gives false information as far as equity and what it is. And then Bill had chimed in the beginning and says, well, I really don't even know what the term equity is. What is equity? I really, really haven't heard of this. Now, Bill, you're a college graduate. You're in the media. You're well read. You have a staff. Do you really want us to believe that you had never heard of this word before? I mean, this is getting beyond the pale. But back to John McWhorter. I think he did a disservice, despite his conservative leanings, by making statements as far as distorting what equity means and what companies or the government is trying to achieve through equity. And that is that you're having targeted, measured ways of being able to have goals to bring in other people, whether it's into a school, into a business, into a nonprofit, not only to present a different viewpoint of what service or whatever it is that a particular company or organization or even a government agency is trying to accomplish, so that these people look like the community that they're serving. Or, as I'm going to talk about in a minute, if you are a particular business and you want to do business in a particular community, it's important that you have people that look like that community that can go out there and represent your company and can also help you in selling to that community and telling you the things that you should or should not do, so that you don't make a mistake and offend the very community that you're trying to go out here and sell product to. And, I think the whole point was missed there. So, Bill, the reason for this is that everyone gets a seat at the table. Everyone has an opportunity to participate, not just one group of people. And everybody wins, because you give Hispanics and you give women and you give Asian Americans and Black Americans a chance to participate in the system. And here's why, just related to what you were talking about with Mr. McWhorter about the entertainment industry, with his closing comments there about a writer's room. Now, for those of you who don't know what a writer's room is where the week that a show is about to be aired, specifically like sitcoms, or even in a film, you have writer's room. Writers get together, there's a script, and they make changes based on a table read that the actors do. Maybe a certain line that isn't funny, or actor has trouble with the dialogue with one of the other actors. It doesn't, play right on camera, but when someone wrote the script, it sounded okay. But they sit around the table at the table read and they make changes. And if they're starting from scratch like a sitcom, you have to write every week. So the writers get together in this writer's room. They come up with an idea for the show, which is called a log line. And then they work on flushing out the script for that week's show. Now, in the old days, all of the shows on television had a white cast. I don't care whether it was a Western, it was a comedy show like Lucy. Most of the cast for all of the television shows, unless it was a guest appearance of a Black celebrity, everybody was white. But in today's world, with all the cable channels, with all of the additional channels between your regular network channels, there's a lot of competition. And as you know, on television, you flip your channels, there's all types of programming out there, and all types of networks. So you need people that come from these other ethnic groups. And Mr. McWhorter was just totally wrong. And I'll give you a prime example of what he and Bill were talking about to show you where they're wrong. So let's just look at network television, not even cable. And when you look at a network like ABC, which wasn't doing well in the ratings, they have come back big. Why? Because they had a show called Blackish. And Blackish had a lot of writers. And of course, we know it was created with Shonda Rhimes. But those writers, who many of them were Black, knew how to write that show and incorporate so much into the show that you could say, whether it had to do with Black culture or some of the jokes were funny, it caught on and it became a big money winner for ABC. The diversity in the writer's room and giving other people a chance to sit at the table. Then, of course, we have the show Abbott Elementary, an award-winning show. It's won, Golden Globes, all types of awards for a top television show that has garnered a lot of revenue for ABC television. And that's because of the diversity of having an opportunity for people to be a part of the show, not just as actors, but behind the scenes. And the main point that Bill Maher and John McWhorter, why you're both wrong, is that if you get a job in the writer's room, as you were talking about, and you're writing for a show, and the show is a flop, not only are you going to lose your job, everybody's going to be out of a job because you've got to write a hit show. So nobody is just getting a job and, oh, you're just there and you feel like you got the job because you're black or because you're Hispanic. No, you've got to work twice as hard and you've got to prove yourself. And if you don't make it, you're out. So, the whole premise of what you're saying it just makes no sense. And when you look at film, just 2 weeks ago, the film Creed 3 came out, and it's headed towards being the biggest box office sports action movie ever made. It'll probably gross $500, $600, $700 million. It's already well over $250 million. Okay, so much for diversity at the box office. Look at the film Black Panther. Over $1 billion each at the box office. It made money. That movie wouldn't have been made 30 years ago. We know that. But because we have diversity, everybody benefits. The actors, the studios make unprecedented movies. These whole arguments make no sense. To go on a platform like HBO with this position of these things are causing problems in the country. And this is where I want to go right now, of why it's important to point this out, because of where we are. We are at a time when many people in America want us to go backwards. We know we went through Make America Great Again. We know what that was about. But we have Republican states currently, right now, that are taking away power from black elected officials who are elected by black people in their cities to make decisions as mayors or police chiefs or as city council people or district attorneys. And let's just look at what is going on. Let's just look at specific cases. So we have in Houston just this week, the state of Texas, run by Republicans and a Republican governor, Greg Abbott, is taking control of one of the largest school systems in the country, the Houston School District, where you have a black mayor in the city. And I guarantee you that out of that, they're going to put in a bunch of charter schools and dismantle public education. A lot of the black teachers are going to lose their job. The schools are not going to get better. The test scores are not going to go up. But here you have the governor coming in and taking over the schools from a black mayor and black people who run the school system. Okay? You have in the city, in the state of Georgia, in Fulton County, where a black prosecutor, district attorney, is prosecuting Donald Trump for his interference in the election, that we know on tape he was asking them to give him more votes, sitting in the Oval Office. He's on tape breaking the law. But they're trying to remove her because they're saying she hasn't prosecuted criminals. Excuse me, she's prosecuted the YSL gang, who weren't even operating in Fulton County. They were in DeKalb County, but because some of them were selling drugs in Fulton County, she went after them and has taken down the whole gang. Some of them were well-known rappers. She's had all kinds of death threats. So here is the state of Georgia trying to remove a person that was elected by the black people of Fulton County. Then we have in Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, where they just had the water crisis, the Republican elected officials and Republican governor that Jackson is predominantly black. It's the capital city of the state of Alabama, the state of Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi. And what they want to do is separate the city where the white section of the city is and give them autonomy and send in a new police force that's probably going to be all white, a new court system. Just separate almost creating an apartheid system. Then you have things going on in the federal government, where pretty soon we're going to have a verdict, something going on with the federal government making a decision about whether to prosecute Donald Trump. And if the prosecutor who's been brought in through the Justice Department decides to do that, it's going to be a black jury that is made up of predominantly people from Washington, D.C., that are going to make decisions on that case. And then, of course, we have in New York, Alvin Bragg, who is the black district attorney, who it looks like this coming week is going to be moving forward with an indictment of Donald Trump. And as these things are going on in the country, we know that there are people and groups who don't want to see black people in positions of any power, not just having a job in Hollywood, but as I just pointing out, making decisions as a mayor of a city with their school system, making a decision as a mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, as what's best for its citizens, making a decision as a prosecutor, prosecuting gangs and gang activities, but because they're also bringing perhaps charges against the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, they want to take their power away. So, Mr. McWhorter, you're commenting about, oh, are black people, maybe they're not qualified for these jobs. What kind of message are you sending out to the public and to America at this particular time, when it's so crucial that we have people in positions of power who are doing their jobs, and in many cases their lives are being put at risk? And in New York City, I heard today, where an indictment may come down next week on Donald Trump, they have already uncovered upcoming plots by extremist groups to perhaps do some type of violence. So the FBI, Homeland Security, New York State Police, of course, New York City Police, the federal court police are all on emergency standby, preparing for what the outcome might be if the president is indicted. And yet we have Bill Maher going on TV, making these types of statements and doing shows, bringing up topics like this, and in many cases making light of it, almost laughing at it. And as I said, this would not be done to any other group of people in this country. So in the climate that we're in, I just think a platform that Mr. Bill Maher has is really going off the rails in, as I said, maybe putting a target on the back of black people, when we are fighting for equity and justice and inclusion and equality, something we've been fighting for a very long time. And we don't need to be in the position where, whether it's a song that's offensive to us, that we should be mocked about it, whether it's people who feel conscious that they want to stay woke and I'm going to stay woke, that's a bad thing, or to even have a continued effort, as many people are engaged in and have been engaged in for decades, the fight for reparations that may not ever happen in my lifetime, but maybe sometime in this country's future, that people recognize that it's the right thing to do. And I can't think of a better way to end it than with some comments by someone that I admire, the former host of The Daily Show, Mr. Trevor Noah, who is black, but from Africa, and really gave a great explanation of why there's a debt owed to ADOS, American descendants of slaves, who are in this country. And he explained very well for everyone to get a clear and decisive understanding of what reparations is, maybe why it's owed, who owes it. And I would like you to listen to his comments. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's hear what Trevor Noah had to say.
Is the key.
Well, the country deindustrialized, right? So a lot of people in manufacturing jobs and stuff,
Right.
barriers were affected
But so to your question, I think you have to understand what the word reparations means first. So reparations, you are repairing something that you have broken. You are paying for something that you were supposed to pay for. I'm not saying that there aren't people living in America today who are suffering and are going through pain and strife because of what's happening when it comes to, the machines taking jobs, factories becoming industrialized, etc. But reparations is a specific conversation about a specific time in America, and that is black people were slaves. You know what I mean? I've even heard people say like, oh, but there were some of the Irish who were indentured. Like, yeah, slavery. Look at the numbers, look at the time, look at the level of work. You could not work toward your freedom. For most black people in America, this was a time when you lived and died as a slave. And so that's what reparations is about. And so I hear what you're saying, but I think that's a completely separate conversation that needs to be had about the now. Because if you are not careful, what you then do is you combine everybody's suffering into the same ball, and you make it seem like all injustices have the same weighting, and they don't. Just like crimes, theft isn't the same as murder. We don't try them the same way. And as much as there is a white person who's suffering today, I feel for anybody who's suffering, because I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to suffer. I didn't come from a wealthy family. We struggled when I was growing up, but I also understand that there are levels of that suffering. And so sometimes white people, it does block a white person, because you go white privilege, and a person goes, I'm poor and I'm white. Where's the privilege? White people are like, I wish I could activate my white privilege. I wish I could do it right now. White privilege, give me something. I get that. I get that. Trust me, I get it. It is hard to accept that you have benefits because of the color of your skin if you cannot see the benefits that you have. But the thing I try to explain to a person is, think of it more like golf. Don't think of it as privilege, then think of it like a handicap. Right? In golf, they acknowledge that you are in a position where you need so many advantages to be competitive in the game, right? So what they say is you have a handicap of 15, so that means like you're going to be hitting from this tee and you get more chances to get the ball in because we understand the position you're in. And if you're a black person in America, from slavery, from day one, the number of injustices that have held black people back in America amount to an insurmountable, like you look at black people's freedom, you look at black people's land, just land alone. The amount of wealth you can acquire over time if you own land is exponential, because you have the land, you have the fact that you can borrow based on the land, you have the fact that you can use the money that you have borrowed to grow more wealth, you can use it to grow your family's wealth. Just taking that away from black people alone is crippling them. And so you combine that with slavery, and then you look at Jim Crow laws. You didn't let black people in America live in the areas that they wanted to live in. They couldn't get loans from the banks that they wanted to get loans from. And then on top of that, when they started getting the loans from American banks were found to be giving them higher interest rates when in fact they were the same risk as many of the other races that they were giving loans to. So when you combine all of those things, I think it's safe to say that black Americans have a conversation that they need to be having with the United States. Doesn't involve me, doesn't involve white people, it's like, yo, American government, meet the black people. That's it. Have that conversation.